I was 20 weeks pregnant and I was living in Papua New Guinea. I was working there. It was just before Christmas. These robbers came into my workplace and I was held at gunpoint. And 10 days later, I found out that the baby had died, that I wasn't carrying a baby anymore. When it comes to being ourselves, I think it is just recognizing how much we get saddled and weighed down by the version of the person we think we're supposed to be.
Sun is coming up, are you ready to go? We can take a ride, we can take it slow. Yeah.
Oh, welcome to the show, Margie Worrell, Dr. Margie Worrell. I am so honored to have you here. Thanks for joining us on the road to self-love.
Oh, it's awesome to be with you, Paul. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, my pleasure. So I personally believe that self-love is the devotion to your individuality. And it's really, really important for me to have my guests introduce themselves as they truly want to be known and like what their passions are and really, underneath that canned bio that our publicists send out. Like, I'd love to know, like, who are you?
Who am I? I think at the heart of who I am is I'm a brave-hearted woman who is just passionate about making the most of my one and only precious life and helping others do exactly the same. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm from the deep, deep, deep South, from the land down under. And I'm an adventurer at heart too. I love living life as a big, daring adventure.
That's so beautiful. I think that it's interesting because whenever I ask this question, there's like this large range of answers I get, like from like very simple answers to really like 10-minute answers. And I just love how you're so concise because you understand who you are.
Look, you know what? I will say this, Paul, as I sit here drinking my cup of tea, I think the journey to really knowing who we are is a lifelong journey. Mm-hmm. And I think we just keep peeling back the layers and the layers and the layers. And, I might have told you at 30 that I sort of knew who I was, and then at 35 or 40, I could have told you, well, I'm still figuring it out. And so I think we're always sort of discovering more about who we are and getting and just looking at all the things that keep us from really being who we are and showing up as who we are and loving who we are with all our faults and fallibility and all our imperfections and embracing our own flawsomeness.
Flawsomeness. I love that. That's so good. Well, this is really interesting, and I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on the things that keep us from embracing who we are and being the most authentic versions of ourselves.
Well, we are born into a world where we're surrounded by other people's expectations and hopes and dreams and ideas and norms, social norms, gender norms, cultural norms, family norms. And so from the earliest day, we are rewarded for being more of something and we're sort of discouraged from being something else. And even the most loving, well-intentioned parents, and I'm a mum myself, I have 4 kids, we don't even recognize at times how we can be sort of, encouraging our children to be more of something. It's like, oh, you were helpful. Well, you're going to get some praise and you weren't helpful, so you're not going to get praise. And so they kind of learn, be helpful or be friendly or be nice or be acquiescent or be bold or whatever, and I think there's a gendered nature to that too. And so, when it comes to being ourselves, I think it is just recognizing how much we get saddled and weighed down by the version of the person we think we're supposed to be.
Okay, so now here's the tough question because I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm here for this. We talk about this all day long here on the show, and it's really beautiful to hear everyone's different understanding of that. My question for you is, how do we do that?
And that's where I think self-awareness, I can't remember who said it, but, the unexamined life isn't worth living. And so I think the more we My language is really developing a relationship with our authentic selves. And to me, our authentic self is not the one that's defined by our outer casing or even our intellect or the conditions of our lives, but to me, it's that spiritual self. You know, I believe that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And for those who are listening, I mean, I don't know what age you are, but, you know, when you were 10, you look different than when you were 10, than when you're 20, and when you're 30, and one day you'll be 50, and then you'll be 70. But there's a part of you, I was just listening to a guy yesterday saying, I'm 76 and I feel like I'm in a 35-year-old body. Well, like I still feel like I'm 30 and I'm not, and I'm well past 30. And it's this part of us that's sort of timeless. And I think that the more we can look at the world through that eyes of the self that isn't defined by how firm our butt is or our age or what other people know of us or how many people follow us on Insta or any of that, it helps us to realize that so much of what we get pulled into is just pulled into that social expectation and pressure, and to be able to just practice being the detached observer and just noticing how you're noticing. I mean, mindfulness, this craft of, you know, it's an ancient wisdom, mindfulness, is paying attention to what you're paying attention to. What is it I'm noticing now? I'm noticing that I'm feeling pressure to act a certain way, to dress a certain way, to go out with a certain group of people, to talk a certain way. Isn't that interesting that I'm noticing that? Okay, well, does that work for me or not? And I think just the more we can notice what we're telling ourselves, because not everything that we tell ourselves is true, and to be able to challenge our own thinking and challenge our own perceptions, and recognize that so much of that is just being shaped by the opinions of other people around us and the messages we're getting, even the subliminal messages that we're being bombarded with all the time.
Yeah. All of that. I love that. Noticing what we're noticing. That's so beautiful. And the self-awareness, it's a big pillar of my lessons and my teachings. And I'm really, really here for that. I'm curious, was there like a real like catalyst for you to be like, wow, I got to let go of this control, like something that happened in your life?
In my late 20s, I was actually pregnant with my first baby. I was 20 weeks pregnant and I was living in Papua New Guinea. I was working there and it was just before Christmas and I was involved in these robbers came into my workplace and I was held at gunpoint and I just remember lying on the ground thinking, I just like scared that they would take me off and gang rape me, because in Papua New Guinea, it's actually very common. And they didn't. And then 10 days later, I was getting my actually 20-week ultrasound. So I was probably 18 weeks pregnant at the time. And I found out that the baby had died, that I wasn't carrying the baby anymore. And it just was completely blindsided me. I had never thought I would be in an armed robbery. And then I certainly hadn't even occurred to me that I would have a miscarriage, and particularly not that far along. And those two events happening in really quick succession, for me, one, they just completely shattered my sense of how the world works and what would happen to me. But as I picked up the pieces and I kind of tried to just get my head around the future and life and how, like, I just didn't think that would happen to me. I realized that bad things happen to all of us, and certainly bad things happen to good people who don't deserve bad things. But we cannot always control what happens to us, but we always have a choice about how we respond. And I just remember being so clear that I did not want to define myself as a victim. And a lot of people were very sorry for me. And I received enormous amounts of sympathy and compassion. And but I remember thinking, I don't want to be thought of as a victim, and I do not want to I don't want to go through life thinking I'm the one that was in a robbery and lost my first child. And it was actually the following year that I went back to college and started doing psychology that I'd already been interested in. which really set me off on the career path that I'm on today and why we're even speaking. But I share that with you because the lesson that I got from that, which was pretty confronting experience at the time, I was like 28 or something, was that there are so many things outside of our control in life. But our power as human beings, our power lays in the choice we make, in how we respond in those moments when life tests us the most. And none of us can avoid pain in life, but we don't have to sit there and suffer and wallow in pain forever. And how do we channel that? So I guess that's what drives a lot of my work today, and empowering people to be braver with their lives. And part of that is just embracing your own journey for the lessons it holds, embracing your heartaches for the lessons they hold, and knowing that out the other side of heartache, you can actually be a more whole person. It doesn't have to ruin your life. That actually sometimes those storms we think are ruining our path are really just revealing our path. And adversity, and I think in any moment, knowing that you don't have to know exactly what's going to happen 1 month, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year from now, but right now you have everything it takes to meet this moment. And then, next hour you've got everything it takes to meet that moment. And just life is a series of moments. And when we operate and we ground ourselves in our innate adequacy to rise to every moment, trees lay deeper roots when storms blow in. Well, we have to kind of connect to a deeper part of ourselves when life storms hit us, sometimes out of nowhere, and go, I've got this, I can rise to it, I can figure it out. And we discover in ourselves, actually, I can do more than I thought. And often we don't even realize our own strength until it's been put to the test. Yeah.
So, if people are really like jiving with what you're talking about and they really want to learn more about you or experience more, how's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, well, there's a few things that they can do. Firstly, they can jump on my website, margieworrell.com, and sign up for my newsletter, or look me up on wherever they hang out on social media, Instagram, where am I, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I also encourage them to check out my new book, You've Got This, which I know I sent you a copy of. And I've also got a Live Brave podcast. So wherever you listen to your podcasts, it's been on pause since I moved country, but there is a lot of awesome episodes on there I encourage people to listen to. And I am sure that they'll find inspiration and encouragement in their own journey of self-compassion. In fact, I talk about self-compassion in numerous different episodes, and just embracing our own fallibility and being kind to ourselves in tough moments.
Margie, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Everyone, if you're listening, make sure to go follow her on Instagram, binge her podcast, get her new book, and remember, you are worth it. You deserve it. And you are not alone. We'll see you next time.
And you're flawsome.
And you're flawsome. Flawsome, awesome, and everything in between. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.